Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you into the whirlwind story that's been dominating headlines, setting political circles ablaze, and redefining the limits of defamation battles in Washington. It all begins with a moment that seemed like any other in the charged atmosphere of Capitol Hill, a clash of ideologies, sharp tongues, and wounded pride. But what came next sent shockwaves across the nation. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a fierce advocate and rising voice in the Democratic Party, has filed a jaw-dropping $100 million defamation lawsuit against House Speaker Mike Johnson, accusing him of spreading what she calls a shocking lie that not only damaged her career, but struck at the very integrity of her character. This wasn't just another partisan squabble, and it wasn't some petty exchange of words across a committee hearing room. No, this was serious. It all started when Speaker Johnson, during a nationally televised press conference, made a claim about Representative Crockett that many found so egregious, so unsubstantiated, that it instantly lit a firestorm on social media and cable news. The accusation that Crockett had knowingly colluded with foreign interests in an attempt to disrupt legislative processes. A wild charge, unsupported by any evidence, thrown into the public arena with the casual recklessness of someone who either underestimated his opponent or simply thought he was above accountability. But Jasmine Crockett is not someone you can smear without consequence. She's a former civil rights attorney who has spent her life fighting for justice. Someone who knows not only how to deliver powerful speeches on the House floor, but also how to use the legal system as a weapon for truth. And in this case, that's exactly what she did. Within days of Johnson's remarks, Crockett's legal team sprang into action, compiling a lawsuit that is as aggressive as it is uncompromising. In the 72-page filing submitted to the D.C. District Court, Crockett alleges that Johnson's statements were malicious, knowingly false, and strategically timed to inflict maximum reputational harm. The suit claims that these lies jeopardized her safety, triggered threats from extremists, and disrupted her ability to serve her constituents effectively. And what's more, Crockett isn't just demanding a public apology, she's demanding $100 million in damages. Why such a staggering figure? Because, as a spokesperson put it, truth is priceless, and when powerful men attempt to destroy a woman's name for political gain, they must pay the price, both in court and in history. The suit goes on to detail how Johnson's statement was quickly weaponized by far-right media outlets, leading to days of disinformation campaigns targeting Crockett, complete with deepfake videos, bot-driven smear efforts, and even death threats. Her team argues that Johnson, as Speaker of the House, has a duty not just to his party but to the Constitution, to speak with integrity, not to stoke flames of paranoia and division with baseless allegations. The political world was stunned. Commentators on both sides acknowledged the gravity of the moment. Some Republicans scrambled to distance themselves from Johnson's remarks, while others doubled down, accusing Crockett of using the courts to silence political opponents. But let's be clear, this isn't about silencing anyone, it's about consequences. In an era where misinformation can destroy lives with a single tweet or sound bite, Crockett's lawsuit represents a line in the sand. A declaration that if you lie with intent, with power, and with the knowledge that those lies could hurt someone irreparably, you will be held accountable. What makes this even more historic is the context. Crockett, a black woman from Texas who's made her name speaking truth to power, is going up against one of the most powerful men in Washington. The optics are undeniable, but beyond the optics is a deeper narrative of courage, of resistance, and of justice. Because while $100 million may sound like an enormous amount, the true cost of reputational harm in politics, especially for women and people of color, can never be fully measured in dollars. It costs influence, it costs credibility, it costs votes, and often it costs peace of mind. Now, Mike Johnson has responded through his legal team, calling the lawsuit frivolous and a political stunt. But what he hasn't done is provide a single piece of evidence backing his original claim. Not one document, not one witness, not one credible source. His office has tried to walk a fine line, claiming his words were taken out of context, that he never meant to imply criminality, but the damage is done. And Crockett's attorneys argue that it was never about implication. It was about deliberate harm. This case will likely drag on for months, maybe years. It will become a flashpoint in discussions about free speech versus defamation, power versus accountability, and whether truth can still triumph in a world flooded with lies. But no matter the outcome, Jasmine Crockett has already made history. She's taken a bold step that few in her position have dared to take. She's using the very system that people said would never protect someone like her to demand justice, not just for herself, but for every public servant who's been slandered, for every woman told to sit down and take it, for every voice silenced by fear. And so, as we watch this lawsuit unfold, remember what's really at stake. It's not just about money, it's not just about reputations, it's about truth. It's about whether we're going to accept a world where lies go unchecked because the liar holds the gavel, or whether, just maybe, we're going to say enough is enough. Jasmine Crockett has chosen the latter, and in doing so, she may have just changed the game. In the heart of American politics, where power often shields the powerful and consequences are rarely dealt in equal measure, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett has made a defiant, unforgettable stand. Her decision to file a $100 million lawsuit against House Speaker Mike Johnson is not just a legal maneuver. It is a keynote of resistance, a bold declaration that truth still matters, that integrity can and must be defended, even in the most hostile of arenas. At its core, this keynote is about the weaponization of lies, and what happens when someone decides they will no longer be a casualty of political convenience. The key theme here is accountability, a word often tossed around in political speeches, but rarely enforced when the stakes are high. Crockett's keynote begins with one brutal fact: a lie, publicly spoken by one of the most powerful men in Congress, can unravel years of work, trust, and public service in seconds. When Johnson accused her of colluding with foreign interests, an accusation with no evidence, no credible sourcing, and no grounding in fact, he did not just attack her reputation. He challenged the legitimacy of her voice, the credibility of her work, and the foundation of her public trust. And in a world where media cycles run on outrage, where misinformation spreads faster than fact, that kind of attack doesn't just sting, it endangers. So Crockett's lawsuit is more than a legal filing. It is a statement of values. It says that character assassination can no longer be brushed off as political strategy, that women, especially women of color in positions of power, do not have to accept false narratives spun by those who assume they will not fight back. It says that there is a line, and that when it is crossed, there are consequences, serious, financial, and public. And perhaps most importantly, it places responsibility exactly where it belongs, not on the victims of defamation, but on the perpetrators. In her keynote, Crockett does not position herself as a victim, but as a fighter. She reminds the public that she is a civil rights attorney, someone who knows how the law works and who has always stood on the side of justice, even when it was difficult. She speaks with the weight of someone who has represented people unfairly targeted, unjustly punished, and systematically ignored. This is not new terrain for her. It is a battlefield she knows well. But this time, the fight is not for a client. It is for herself, and by extension, for every person who has been lied about, shouted down, or erased from the conversation. What's so striking about Crockett's approach is her unwillingness to let this moment be swept under the rug. Many in her position might have issued a statement, requested a retraction, or moved on to avoid the inevitable backlash. But Crockett did not flinch. Instead, she chose to make this a turning point. She looked at one of the most powerful figures in government and said, "You lied, you knew it was a lie, and now you will answer for it." There is something profoundly American about that confrontation, A sense that no one is above the law, that power should not protect wrongdoing, that truth is not a privilege but a right. Crockett's keynote challenges the idea that politics has to be dirty, that smearing opponents is just part of the game. She is saying that if we accept that logic, we destroy the very institutions we claim to serve. Democracy cannot survive in a culture where lying is cost-free. If words have no weight, if leaders can say anything without evidence and suffer no consequence, then the public is left defenseless. Crockett is trying to restore some balance to that broken scale. The lawsuit, with its staggering $100 million demand, is not just about money, it is symbolic. It signals the seriousness of the harm done, not only to Crockett personally, but to the democratic process itself. It says that when lies are used to poison public discourse, the price should be steep. And it's a warning. This is what accountability looks like. You cannot hurl falsehoods and walk away untouched. Not anymore. The response from Speaker Johnson and his allies has been predictable. Dismissal, minimization, and accusations of political theater. But what they fail to see is that Crockett is not performing. She is prosecuting. And her case is not just legal, but moral. She is holding up a mirror to a culture that too often rewards outrage and punishes integrity. She is asking the public to consider, what kind of leadership do we want? Do we want those who can lie without blinking, or those who speak truth even when it's risky? Crockett's keynote resonates far beyond her district or even the halls of Congress. It echoes in communities across the country where people are tired of being gaslit, misrepresented, or ignored. It speaks to every teacher, activist, journalist, and public servant who has been slandered for doing their job, and it offers a roadmap: stand your ground, use your voice, and when necessary, take your fight to the courts. This moment is not just about Crockett or Johnson. It is about the soul of public discourse. It is about refusing to normalize lies, to excuse bad behavior, to let powerful men walk away from the mess they create. Crockett's keynote is a fire alarm, a demand for truth in a time when truth feels endangered. And in choosing to fight back not just with words but with legal firepower, she is redefining what accountability looks like in modern American politics. Whether the lawsuit ends in a courtroom victory or not, Crockett has already won something more valuable: the respect of those who believe that justice still matters. She has forced a national conversation about responsibility, truth, and the cost of character defamation. She has shown that leadership isn't just about policy, it's about courage, and she has reminded us that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stand up and say, "You will not lie about me, you will not silence me, and you will not get away with it."